How's it going, everybody? Today I'm super excited to announce the launch of my new line of cages and accessories for the Sigma FP and FPL. For those of you out there who've been following along know that this has been about a year in the making. Super excited to say that these are finally in production now. Pre-sales obviously are opening today. Depending on when you're watching this and when you order, they should be shipping beginning August 1st, 2024. So yeah, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to go over the cage design with you, over the system, tell you a little bit about it, and hopefully you can then decide if this is something you'd like to invest in to help you get the most out of and also protect your Sigma FP camera. Now, there are a few new accessories specific to this camera, but there's also many accessories that have already been brought out by my company, XLCS Designs, for the camera cages that I've already produced up to this point that will also carry over and work with this system. Now, diving straight into the design of the cage itself, this is out of one single piece of aluminum, CNC machined and anodized black. As you can see, it's covered in various threaded holes, allowing you to mount just about anything you want, just about anywhere you want onto the body of the cage. It has about 109 total mounting points. Most of those are 1/4-20 threaded. There are, however, a few 3/8 threaded on the side, top, and bottom, and those also feature the 3mm RE spacing pin locators for certain accessories that feature that anti-twist design, notably top handles, monitor mounts. By having that on all surfaces, it allows you to put anything you want onto those surfaces, but also allows you to alter the orientation of how you want to shoot with this. If you're putting just a side handle on the side, or putting your top handle or monitor onto the side for shooting vertically and then mounting your handles on the side, all that's an option with those 3/8 holes in place where they are. It also features 2 M4 holes on the front face. Those are for adapter lock mounts, which we'll get into in a minute. So we're going to mount the camera inside the cage. As you can see, it slides quite easily into place. It's quite a snug fit, not too snug by any means. You can easily get this in and out, but also a lot of cages on the current market have a lot of gap around the top. This sits very flush and very firmly into the cage itself. When you buy the kit, one screw will be longer, one will be shorter. The longer one fits into the bottom, screws right into place, and the shorter one goes into the side, and you can see it very quickly and easily mounts into the cage. Now, going over the different faces of this cage, starting with the top, you'll see appropriate cutouts that give you full access to your power switch, the switch that switches from cinema mode to stills mode, your camera dial, your trigger, your record button. All that is easy to get to. You'll notice a plethora of 1/4-20 holes on the top for mounting whatever accessories you really want. You'll also see that there are 2 3/8 by 16 threaded holes on the top, as opposed to just one. They're in slightly different orientations. One is centered with the lens, while one is centered with the body. The reason for that being, after speaking to several users out there, what their preference was, there are those using top handles that want that sort of centered with the lens to keep balance of the camera, but then people shooting in a much more stripped down state prefer having their monitors centered with the camera and also keeping a little bit easier access to where your dials and controls are. You'll also see a thumb nub right here that's knurled to give you a little bit of extra grip. When paired with the wooden handle, which we'll get to in a minute, provides a very comfortable grip for shooting while this is in the cage. Now, on the face, obviously you can see several more 1/4-20 holes. You'll also see a few spaced out around the perimeter here. This is for adding the optional threaded 15mm rod, which we'll get to in a minute. On the side, again, more quarters. You'll also see another 3/8 hole here with RE spaced orientation pins all the way around for a side handle. If you want to sort of pivot its rotation, this will allow you to do that. This is also centered with the lens, so that if you're shooting vertical and you want to attach your monitor or your top handle here, it will keep it in the center orientation of the camera. You'll also see a little cutout here on the side. Now, this is very important, and you'll note a lot of earlier cage designs did not implement this. The Sigma FP, if you want to power it externally, there's a little rubber flap on the battery door so that you can put a dummy battery in, run a cable out, and fully close that battery door and allow the power cable to run out. Without this window in place, there's no room for that rubber to swing away and give enough room for the power cable to extrude from the camera itself. So by having this in place, it allows you to 100% use the dummy batteries that are needed to power this camera externally. On the back, you'll see there are the appropriate holes needed for mounting the LVF viewfinder here directly to the cage. You'll see there are some additional 1/4-20 holes, which we'll get to in a minute, that allow you to mount a cheese plate directly to the back of this camera for adding battery adapters and whatnot. On the bottom, once more, all the holes you could ask for. You'll also see the 3/8 hole in line with the 1/4-20 hole. Most larger tripods, a lot of gimbals, will have 2 mounting screws that keep the camera from rotating and pivoting once it's mounted onto something. Obviously, to the left and to the right of that, there are more threaded holes in alignment, so that if you're mounting this to the gimbal and your weight seems to be a little bit off, you can slide it to either side and still, again, make use of that anti-swivel feature that a lot of gimbal mounts and tripods have. On the bottom, you'll also again see a little bit of a cutout here for that dummy cable once more to easily pass out of the cage when it's installed on the camera. And another design element that I added is a extra little cutout here to make it easier for inserting and removing the SD cards. A lot of cages that just run straight flush across there leave you very little room to kind of get your fingers in there to get that SD card out. By allowing this little extra cutout here, it definitely makes that a lot more of a quick and easy process. On this side, you'll notice that there is an appropriate cutout here along the top for the EVF when that's installed onto the camera to give it the ability to fully articulate without coming into contact with the top of the cage, since that does sort of curve over and sits very flush with the camera itself. If the cage protruded all the way to the side to match the top of the camera, you would not be able to swivel that all the way up and all the way down without causing any sort of damage to the EVF. Furthermore, you're going to see 4 M3 screw holes around the perimeter here, and that is for the side plate attachment, which we'll get to in a minute, which adds even more mounting points, as well as the ability to put cable locks for the USB-C and HDMI ports onto this camera. So that's the base overview of the cage itself. We're going to move into some of the accessories now. Before I go into that though, you've obviously seen this red cap that we've got on the camera right now. This is a locking body cap. This is also machined out of a solid piece of aluminum, anodized red. The purpose for the red, it makes it a little bit easier to find when you're throwing this into your camera bag. You can spot it right away, pull it out, and then also, while it's in place, it sort of evokes that feel of the red record button, which is the basis of filmmaking for a lot of us who grew up in the digital world, so a little bit of a nod to that. It's been made to lock in any orientation, so you don't have to do any sort of proper alignment with the red dot on the camera to get it to lock into place. You can put it on in any orientation and it will continue to lock into place, making it quick and easy to add and take off. Once it's in place, it cannot be removed unless the lens release is depressed and it's twisted out of place. Most of the plastic caps that come with these cameras don't have a locking feature, and if they're bumped or not put on all the way, they can easily slide off, fall out of place, and then leave your sensor exposed. So by using a locking cap, you can be sure through that click that this cap is not coming off under any circumstances. Now I'm going to quickly speak about the side plate, obviously covered in mounting points to give you even more mounts. It also provides a little bit more added protection to the edges of this camera that are exposed. You'll also notice some cutouts here on the inside surface, and this allows you to tuck the rubber flaps out of your way for both the USB and the headphone jack. Now this installs quite simply by fitting it into place and running down the 4 M3 screws that are included. We've also added a 1/4-20 hole right to the back side of this, which is a very neat feature because if you were to measure it with the furthest away quarter hole on the cage, it's exactly 60 millimeters in spacing. So if you were to take 2 of those 15 millimeter rods and thread these into place on the cage, then they are at the appropriate spacing distance that you need to use standard 15 millimeter rod accessories. And now you've got a cheese plate, battery plate, whatever it is you want to mount to the back of your camera that slides right in onto native 15 millimeter rods mounted directly to the cage. Now again, you can mount the back plates directly to the cage. We'll get that in a second, but if you want to use other 15mm rod accessories, this is the way to do it without having to fully rig this out with the 15mm mount. Now, something else I want to talk about when it comes to the side plate is that it allows you to use HDMI and USB-C cable locks with this camera. If you've already bought the HDMI lock for the BMP-CC OG cage, or you bought the USB-C lock for the micro cage, both of those will work with this cage system as well. You take your adapter lock, just quickly finger tighten, leave it loose, the adapter lock over it. Take your included pigtail or cable that you are using, and you want to go ahead and line that up and pop that into place. Take your M3 screw, go ahead and run that in and get that tight, and then you want to go ahead and tighten the screw holding the lock to the cage. And essentially what that does is that it locks the cable to the lock and then locks the lock to the cage, taking all the strain off of the port itself, and creates one of the best protections you could ever hope for your ports with this camera. I'll go ahead and throw the USB-C one on so you can see that as well. Almost identical to how the HDMI port protector goes in. Finger tighten in your lock onto the plate. Go ahead and plug in your cable. Now, something we have for the USB-C lock is a little piece of metal. If you've got expensive cables, ones you want to protect a little bit better, not run screws into it every time, you can take this little piece of metal, fits into place between the edge of the lock and the cable itself. And you again want to run in your M3 screw, get that firmly into place, and then lock in your lock. And then same deal. This is about as secure as you could ever hope for with that USB-C lock, and both of these in place create just an ultimate system for protecting those ports and allowing you to rig this up if you're on a shoot where you're recording to external hard drives and using an external monitor. Now, something that's nice about these two is that once you've gotten them initially installed once, you can generally just unscrew the locks and pull them away and leave the locks on the cables, because they will line up the same way next time you come in to use them, and you can just pop those into place on the camera and screw them back in. Now, next I want to talk about the wooden handle. I think it's a really nice feature to add to this if you're planning on shooting this a little bit more stripped down. It bolts right to the face of the cage. Also CNC machined from black walnut, which is a beautiful wood and a really nice complement to the black anodization of the cage. And so you can see here, fits very nicely in your grip between both the thumb grip and the roundness of the wooden handle. Now, this is the most basic kit set up for this camera. You can purchase everything a la carte, one by one, bit by bit, or there are a couple of pre-built kits that we've got for the website that offer a slight discount. This is the basic one that features the locking body cap, the cage, the side plate, and the wooden handle. There's a couple of add-ons you can throw in there too. If you want to purchase the cable locks with the side plate together, you'll get a little bit of a discount there as well, since they sort of complement each other. Now, from here, you can really rig this thing out just about any way that you want. I'm going to talk for a little bit about the threaded 15mm rods. They thread right into place onto the face of the cage, and then you take your tool, and there's a couple of holes at the base of this. You insert your tool through those holes, and it gets you a little bit of added leverage to really crank these down, which is important, again, if you're using a follow focus motor. Now, also just to point out, these don't have to mount just to that orientation. You can mount them along the top, either side, and then again, as I mentioned, these thread onto the back as well and give you that standard spacing for using your 15mm rail attachments. Next, we're going to talk about the adapter locks for this. There are actually two different ones you can choose from. There is the Viltrox/Metabones adapter lock, which was designed for those specific type adapters. They could possibly work with other more generic brands as long as that bottom foot of the adapter is removable, which is the case with a lot of these. And then of course we've also got one that is specific for the Sigma MC21 adapter, which is a slightly different build design than the Viltrox and Metabones ones. So when it comes time to possibly purchase one of these adapter locks, you've got the option of either picking up one for the Sigma specific MC21 or one for the Viltrox. There's also a universal one we'll get to in a minute. Now, the way these work, which is quite effective, is that you simply remove the leg of the adapter and then lightly screw the adapter lock into place on the adapter itself, mount it to your camera, and then holding this flush against the face, run in a couple of M4 screws, And then while everything is still finger tight and still a little bit flexible, finish tighten the ones that lock the adapter lock to the adapter, and then tighten the adapter lock to the cage. And now with the adapter lock in place, it keeps a very low profile to your rig while keeping the adapter fixed and locked into place. Now this ensures that the adapter is set and locked to the camera. It helps alleviate some of that possible wiggle that may be introduced while using a follow focus and multiple mounts between the lens, the adapter, and the camera. This locks one of those out. And then it also takes a lot of strain off of the mount itself if you're using a very heavy lens. If you're using the Sigma specific MC21, it is a different adapter than the Viltrox and the Metabones, so be sure and pay attention to that when you're deciding to purchase that or not. With these little camera strap loops, you can attach camera straps to this and put them in just about any orientation you want. These strap loops themselves simply thread into any one of the 1/4 20 holes. Set them in the orientation that you find most ideal. Now with the side piece in place, this makes it very quick and easy. If you're not using the side piece here, the camera itself does have a 1/4 20 hole on this side. If you have the EVF in place, it's got another 1/4 hole for putting a strap loop there if you wish. So you don't necessarily have to have the side plate to make use of the strap loops. Now I want to talk again really quick about the back plate. This features a multitude of 1/4 20 mounting points as well as several M4 mounting points. There's also a number on the side, the bottom, and the other side. The spacing on the bottom allows you to mount it to a 15mm rod mount. Now, if you purchase this specifically for the Sigma camera, it's going to come with two 2-inch screws and 4 of these spacers. If you already own this for the micro cage and you didn't pick up the riser kit for it that includes the larger screws and an extra set of these, there's going to be an option on the website for you just to pick up these extra screws. As I mentioned, the cage is designed in a way that allows you to mount this directly to the cage itself. So if you don't want to put it onto the rails, you want to use this a little bit more stripped down, this is a great way to do it. Simply throw the screws in. You can do this either on the top or bottom orientation. You're going to stack on your risers, then align it with the 2/4 holes on the back. Finger tighten them into place a little bit. Then you take your hex wrench and you tighten them on down. And just like that, you now have a back plate for your Sigma FP. Now, if you want to go beyond this, I'm going to talk with you about the 15mm rail mount. Also gives you the ability to use a universal adapter lock. So we've got this stripped down and we're going to mount it now to the 15mm rail mount. To also show you simultaneously how the universal adapter lock, which is currently in place on the 15mm rail mount, works. We're going to throw an adapter on here real quick. You can see it's got that leg protrusion on the bottom. There's 2 holes right here on the bottom that are the proper spacing for putting this on that keeps it from being too far forward or too far back. So you want to line up your screws with those holes. Just run both of those on down, and you can see it's mounted. And one of the nicest things about this, which is sometimes difficult to achieve with this camera given how short it is that this is very close to the industry standard 85mm distance between the center of the rods and the center of your lens. Now, this is important for putting full-size follow focuses on here, putting this up with some map boxes. Most map boxes now do have some slight up and down versatility to them. This gets you close enough to that 85mm height above the rods to make use of those industry standard accessories like map boxes and follow focuses. So not a whole lot of 15mm rail mounts out there that give you that height needed for this, especially with these cameras that are so short. This one was designed specifically to allow you to do that. Now, as you can see, that universal adapter mount sitting right underneath the leg of this adapter. So simply turn it upside down, line up the screw with the hole on the foot of the adapter, and run it on down. Leave it a little loose so you can continue securing the adapter to the mount. Go back, re-lock everything down, and there you've got your universal adapter lock locked to your adapter. If you're using a PL mount, just about any mount on the market that has one of these feet, most of them do. this is going to be the ideal way to lock those into place. Now you can see here with some rods in place, we've put the cheese plate on the back. It's got a V-mount lock in place. Now this may be more than what you're wanting to do with this camera. I know a lot of people are into it because it's so small. However, it's also an extremely powerful and affordable camera. So by building it out like this, it allows you to take something and do with it what you want. You can rig it out for full cinema use like this, keeping everything secure and protected, or you can keep it stripped down for ultimate run and gun or for travel shooting. And one more thing I want to quickly talk about is the SSD mount. This is designed specifically for the T7 Shield and T9 SSD from Samsung. It's got these simple thumb screws for quickly mounting your drive and removing your drive, or you can remove them completely and put M4 screws into place that help then keep it very low profile and a little bit more locked into place. Provides great grip for holding the SSD drive and also for locking the cable to the drive. So there you go. Lots of options for you, lots of different ways to help you build this camera. Again, this whole system was designed with two things mostly in mind. One is protecting your camera itself from physical damage, while also focusing on protecting things like your ports, your lenses, your mounts, your sensors, things that could be prone to damage in the field while in use. And then obviously giving you the ability to build and rig this camera however you want. I'm super excited about bringing this out. It was a lot of fun to work on. Just about any issue out there with any other cages you've ever worked with in the past have been addressed with this system, giving you a very comfortable, easy way to work with it, giving you full access to all the camera's capabilities, while also, again, keeping your rig protected and fully usable. Again, these are on sale now. Go to XLCSDesigns.com to check them out. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can contact us through contact@XLCSDesigns.com. You can leave a comment here in the video below. And thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next time.